Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield, the host of Manny Talks Shooting, and welcome to another episode. This is the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you like this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Talks Shooting. And without further ado, let's get to this episode. The title sponsor of Manny Talks Shooting is Go Fast Don't Suck. So if you need match banners for your match, check them out. They also have an awesome selection of pre-designed and customable jerseys. Don't forget, they are the home of the dry fire decals for your walls, so get those too. They've also got a plethora of patches and stickers that are hilarious and true. You know, Go Fast Don't Suck has a lot of things that you'll need on the range and off, so please check them out at gofastdon'tsuck.net. Hey everybody, it's another installment of Manny Talks Shooting. I'm here sitting down Mason Lane. Mason, it's been too long. How's it been, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for sitting down with me and, reliving the past, I guess. I mean, like I said, we did this, God, maybe probably after your first limited title, probably.
Yeah, like the first half of 2021, I think, so it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long minute, but we're going to kind of catch up, and I think the listeners will quite enjoy this, and they'll probably learn some nuggets because you're full of those because you still instruct. So,
well, thank you.
So
the nuggets here.
Yeah. So Mason, you since the last time you were on here, you got married.
Yeah. Yes, because I got married in the end of 2021 or the latter half of 2021.
Mm-hmm. And you're still together, so that's a good sign. You haven't killed each other yet.
Yeah, it's still working out.
Yeah. At least you're not stuck in a horse trailer or like a horse stall.
No, only voluntarily.
Voluntarily, that's true. Do you, speaking of that, do you actually like help out with horses, or are you just there for moral support?
Yeah, on the days when I'm around town, and when I don't have, generally have work on the weekends where I travel for classes. So when I'm around town, I'll help Kay with her job whenever she has heavy days. So a lot of the times if she's actually doing shoeing and not just trimming on horses, I'll tag along and kind of grease the skids in a lot of those processes. Where sometimes it's more exhaustive than just removing shoe, trim foot, apply shoe. Sometimes there's more gear that goes into it. So I help a lot with a lot of that stuff to make it go a little quicker.
Mm-hmm. Have you actually shoed your own horse yet?
I've not done. I've done like all the components individually, but I've never done one like start to finish on my own. I think I probably could do it with coaching at this point, but I've not actually done that.
Oh, fair enough. So when Kay's sick one day and she's got a big workload, I expect Mason you will be filling in 100%.
That's right. Yeah, I bet she'd like that.
Yeah. See, it's on the it's going to be on the internet, so it means it's factual, locked in information, and she has a binding contract.
Oh no,
I'm sorry about that, buddy. But so you got married. It looks like you had a fantastic wedding, from what I remember on the internet. So
yeah, it was really nice. We were able to have it here at the house, so it was pretty low key, but a party with a wedding attached, which was really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of those nice things. You get it done in front of all your friends and family, and that's all that really matters. So, All right, Mason. So you've been pretty proficient. You've been around the country a couple times now since we last talked. You went to the World Shoot. You've been to Europe a couple times since then.
Yep.
And you've been killing it. Is production still your one true love at this point, or have you I love red dots and I dabble in iron sights?
I mean, I kind of in terms of like where my attention goes, I pretty well just get ready for whatever large upcoming match I'm preparing for. So my time is split pretty evenly between production and carry optics in terms of how I'm spending training time. But I definitely still have a lot of ego tied up in production. It was at the time that I started. This might sound crazy to people. Production was as big as carry optics is now. So it definitely still has a special place in my heart, and I'll definitely continue to pursue it aggressively until it's not relevant for competition anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and AKA not relevant by winning a national championship and calling it a day, right?
Well, yeah, that'll definitely influence the decision making a little bit, but definitely also if it just doesn't consistently attract other top competitors that want to make that challenge meaningful, then at that point I'll probably call it a day.
Right. So even at 2023 handgun nationals, right? It was going to be iron sight. Now then it was turned to handgun.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like the field kind of disappeared, or were all the guys who are still fighting for the top in production still shooting production?
There was definitely some guys that got split off into other divisions that could have otherwise shot production. But I mean, a lot of those guys are also divided among other iron sight divisions, right? So if you did a standalone production nationals and it was one of just a few matches you could go to, then that would be super stacked. And those matches are always prestigious. That's probably why Carry Optics has been such a big deal, or at least a part of it over the last few years. But most of the guys shooting like limited optics and stuff like that, a lot of them are more so dedicated dot shooters. So I mean, I still felt the talent level at this year's nationals was very good. And of course, I mean, anytime you get to shoot against Nils, that's a talent. Whoever walks away with that title definitely earned it.
Absolutely. You've been biting at the heels of taking that title more than one occasion, and we're gonna see it happen. I can feel it now. Would it if the next handgun nationals, or next iron sight production nationals, if Nils wasn't shooting it, would you feel slighted?
I mean, that I don't. I think that word has implications. Like I would hold him personally accountable, but it would mean a little bit less, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean,
but
there's always enough talent in any nationals I've pretty well attended that it means something when you go to it.
mm-hmm.
And there's at least half a dozen other guys that are very good shooters and top contenders. Looking at this previous year's nationals, that it would still mean a lot to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you shot handgun nationals, and did you think that the match was too difficult, or what's your take on this match? Because
Yeah,
I've had my own opinions, but I didn't shoot it.
sure. I think like this year's. Do you shoot this year's Carry Optics nationals at that same range?
No, but I've shot at that range before,
Okay,
so I
so yeah, you're
understand the
probably
limitations.
yeah you're initiated to how it kind of goes.
Mm-hmm.
I felt this year's Carry Optics nationals was hard. It was a hard match, and we were aware of that while we were shooting it. But at the same time, the equipment's a lot more capable. So
Mm-hmm.
the difficulty is sort of diffused through having much more capable equipment. And then handgun nationals or iron sight nationals, whatever it is you'd like to call it, it was an order of magnitude more difficult than Carry Optics nationals was, and of course with half as capable equipment. So it was pretty frustrating, and I think like showing up to walk the stages and stuff after all the staff had already shot and everything, we took one look at the match and we're like, well, this is gonna be a grind. This
Mm-hmm.
is I'm pretty sure the term that was used was sludge fest. This is going to be a scoring sludge fest because no one's gonna get out of this unscathed, and that was definitely a prophecy came true. It was a very difficult match, kind of beyond reason at times.
Mm-hmm. Now, you know, uh, was yes, it was the ground was crappy, but I don't think did it rain during handgun nationals, or was it relatively dry?
I shot on the relay that I shot. We didn't really get rain that impacted the match. We got a little like at the end of day three, but a lot of the except for the top two guys or whatever, the scores already kind of had fallen where they were, and we were more emotionally battered by how badly we had perceptibly shot at that point. That like a little bit of rain on top of it really wasn't that much of an insult.
Fair enough. So afterwards, did you and Team Boneyard go have a party then?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, we're that's going to happen regardless. But yeah, we
Win,
were.
lose or draw, there's always a party.
That's right. We're going to go have a good time after.
Yeah. Now you is this how many times do you think you've been on the Super Squad? 12 by now.
Oh man, I first time was in 2017, and I've been on them pretty consistently since then. So
Yeah.
quite a few times.
Yeah. Now, has it become normal, or do you still have like that first time like nerves?
There's definitely. I mean, I've been pretty good over the last 2 years about trying to put in mentally and energy wise, putting the same into every match that I shoot. So even if I show up to a club match, I'm visualizing how I want to behave and how I want to shoot, like up to a week prior to the match, because it means a lot to me to go perform well by my own metrics, and a byproduct of that is typically winning, unless I'm shooting against other people that are as good as me or better than me, just logically speaking, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's nerves, but I wouldn't say it's like a peer to peer comparison. That part doesn't really add to it that much. It's just, oh, this is a match that I want to win. So yeah, the first stage or two, it's you're always going to kind of experience that nerve factor, wanting to do well and being unsure what's going to happen.
Hmm. Absolutely. Mason, you've been known to be a very analytical person in your shooting. Do you check scores throughout a big match, or do you just kind of leave it till the end?
I'm not super meticulous with it, but I have strived to not be the sort of person that is whose scores are negatively affected by knowing what's going on score wise. I think that's a huge well, not what's the term, not red flag, but a huge liability in your ability to be effective as a competitor. So
Hmm.
for a few years between something like 2017 and 2020 or so, I would meticulously track scores like every single stage. And I don't think, like, at the time I was doing it thinking there was some sort of a mathematical advantage to be gained by knowing what was going on with me compared to other competitors. And my approach to that has matured to be more, if there's math to be done, it's to figure out what the hit factor of the stage is, how I can leverage my skills against the stage I'm on right now, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to optimize my score that way, not just based on what other people are doing. And so I guess running the experiment of paying that close attention, it's effectively desensitized me to that information, because I've
Mm-hmm.
been in high pressure situations where I need to just shoot a stage clean or well to win matches, and done it in both situations. So it was a net positive on my shooting, but just not for the reasons I expected it to be.
Fair enough. So it's more like observe and no real action upon it because it doesn't. You can't really change it at that point, right?
Yep. Yeah. These days, I mean, I'll kind of check scores like at the end of the first 2 days. But most of my attention is not focused on what my score is compared to the guy I'm trying to beat or who I think I'm trying to beat. It's, my ability compared to what the mathematical demands of the stage are, and how can I maximize my score on it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, when you shot, God, there's so many matches, and I keep forgetting all their names, but you went down to IPSC, US IPSC Nationals, right down in
Mm-hmm.
Volusia. You know,
Yes.
um, I didn't check your competitors list, but was the field stacked as normal, or was it more of a lighter field?
It was a little bit lighter. I mean, that match is always lighter than, like a USPSA nationals, or even an IPSC nationals internationally.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a few guys that were really good. Probably German was the most reputable, or other really high level shooter. He came second at the world shoot by a few percent to Eric. So I mean, he's top mortal in the world right now.
Top mortal.
Uh,
I
yeah.
like that.
And he had to shoot, from what I understand, like in 1 day in really poor conditions. So, I mean, I didn't really read into it too much, like what the actual accolades I was able to get out of it. I was just happy with how I was able to shoot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you shot pretty much with your own squad on a different zone with
Mm-hmm.
different conditions.
Yeah,
So you shot your match, and that was
yeah.
all you
We
needed to
shot
do.
over 2 days, and the range was like muddy and stuff, but the overall conditions weren't a problem. We're with all our bros. You see all the scores. It was ideal conditions by comparison.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Now, it was kind of interesting because if you came off of Handgun Nationals and then went to IPSC, IPSC US IPSC Nationals, totally different matches, right? You
Oh
almost think
yeah,
they should have been flip flopped in difficulty, right?
yeah. To some extent, sure. I think stylistically, you want to see like a blend of every sort of stage, and mathematically, and just skills wise, when you go to a nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the ranges at the range in Ohio are significantly bigger, so they're able to do a little bit more with it. Honestly,
Mm-hmm. Now, oh Lord, was I just thinking of a good idea?
sorry.
No, you're fine. My brain is bad as it is, and it's been a long enough week already. I can tell it's only Tuesday, but no, IPSC, US IPSC Nationals was not a typical. It was still 3-2-1 format, but it was not like a typical IPSC match. If I was from the feedback I got from other shooters, agree or disagree on that?
I think probably the impression that people have is that IPSC matches are generally very technically demanding or more accuracy intensive, especially if that opinion is informed by seeing like the world shoot stages and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
This match was a little bit faster paced than usual, but not like blown out of proportion in one direction or the other. I felt it was
Mm-hmm.
lacking on hard shots, but we've also seen IPSC nationals, that are like that before.
Right, so it's not completely out of the norm. It's just not
Yeah,
most
I mean,
normalcy.
people's impression, I guess it's not totally wrong, but like by having the smaller round counts, just by virtue of how long the stage is relative to how much stuff you're shooting, the factors tend to hover more. The median is probably more like 5, and the average is probably more like 6. Where
Mm-hmm.
this match was a bit higher than that.
Yeah, seems like that. But you travel. We've talked pre-show about traveling and flying for stuff. When you fly to matches, do you have to downgrade gear, or are you able to pretty much take the same amount of gear when flying?
I'm pretty big on not bringing more crap than I need. So I mean, when
Mm-hmm.
I travel, I have one like full size suitcase that has my full range bag and a hard side case with guns in it,
Mm-hmm.
and then I put ammo that I need in my other smaller case that has clothes in it, and that's all I need. And so when I go show up to the range, like traveling to a match, I have my regular full size range bag and what I can carry on my back, and that's it. So it doesn't. I'm not really affected by how much stuff I bring. Of course, probably helps that I'm shooting not as gear intensive divisions too, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not really a factor for me.
Right. So you're saying Kay brings more stuff. Is that more accurate?
Yeah, I mean, she definitely likes to be prepared. I see a lot of people that show up with like a cart. They have like a cart with like four wheels, and it's like this wagon that they almost need a motorized vehicle to get it around. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're doing all that stuff, but I don't want or need that much crap while I'm shooting a match.
Right. Well, you got them young legs because you're what? God, what? You 28 yet?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, something like that. You're still, you got them good knees, right? Or have you experienced bad knees yet? I mean, our lives are over when we hit 30, right? That's like, is
Yep,
it, is it like true statements there?
it's downhill from there.
Yeah. I mean, it's already there. No, just all intensive kidding here, guys. But no, but when you go over, you've gone to overseas plenty of times now, traveling with firearms and dealing with permits and travel. Is it really that difficult, or do people make it out to be more difficult than it is?
I guess if your standard that you're comparing to is like traveling from Tennessee to Florida, it's significantly more difficult, right? Because you can't just throw your crap in the car and drive over and expect that the police are going to work with you if you happen to come into contact with them and what have you. But compared to what I think people might expect, it's not that bad. And it depends a lot on what country you're going to. Um, Places like Puerto Rico, it's a U.S. territory. You have to fill out a permit that has your serial numbers on it. So far, the 2 years I've gone, it has not been looked at when I go through the airport to go through quote unquote customs.
Mm-hmm.
Other places have been a little more intense where they want that permit and they're going to kind of shake you down when you leave the airport. But that's kind of the most intense experience we've had is, someone wants to look at your paperwork to confirm that what you have is what your papers say you have, and that's kind of that. It's really not that bad. And like being in country, most places, at least in Europe and in Thailand that we've been, it would be a bad idea to keep your guns on you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually getting around in country with the guns is like, yeah, you need to be there when you see your permit say you're going to be there and leave when you say you're going to leave. But that's pretty much the only restrictions.
Mm-hmm. Now, if like you're going to Thailand, do they allow? Do they do they offer like it where your guns go to like the host like they stay at the club, and somebody else is like holding on to them, or?
I think that is a service that a lot of the larger matches provide because people are, there's people that are from countries where they don't have access to their stuff or their region is organizing the group travel there because they're much more hands on than our region is.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never taken advantage of that. I've always just kind of held on to my own stuff.
Right. Probably safer that way. None of your crap gets damaged, dinged, or lost to zero,
Yeah,
or an
and I
outside.
mean, again, right? Like the standard of security that I'm accustomed to is when I leave the range, I can carry the gun on me loaded if I want to because we live in America.
Right. America.
Yeah, America.
America. But yeah. No, that's good. No, but difficulty. There's really no aid to. It's not like our region gives any aid for like, hey, securing your permits or anything. It's kind of all. It's all tribal knowledge from what other people who've gone and experienced. Foreign travel with firearms. More correct.
Yeah, that's definitely reflected by sort of how the information gets passed around. A lot of the time, if there's a match where there's going to be a large American constituency, there will be a Facebook page that's put together,
Mm-hmm.
often organized by USPSA leadership that's also attending the match. And you have to do a little bit of communicating with USPSA directly to basically demonstrate that you're a USPSA member in good standing to go shoot these matches. But overall, like going to the match, you have like basically three pieces of paper you need generally that are going that to be able to go do the trip. Approval from your region, your permit for the country you're going to, and a piece of paper that demonstrates that the guns you're bringing are yours, so that when you come through American customs, you don't get shaken down. But
Oh,
it's
okay.
pretty easy most places.
That's pretty nice. Now, have you, not to jinx you or anyone, have you had any like horror stories of traveling, or no, not at
Um,
all?
Not, I mean, I wouldn't say anything that's a short answer. No, like
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some of my friends like almost miss flights and stuff like that, based on like assuming that you could bring as much ammo as you want and not mention it in your checked luggage, leaving countries besides America, like
Mm-hmm.
that can be an issue for you. I had a friend that came back into America and their first stop in the U.S. was JFK Airport in New York,
Ooh, bad idea.
and that ended up being a pretty bad idea for them. You don't want to do that. I'll spare you the details, but you don't want to do that. But other than that, no, not really. I mean, like sometimes it's the joys of traveling. Sometimes you get screwed and end up staying places that you don't want to be much longer than you'd like to be. But if you're that's a risk you're willing to take. That's really the worst thing I've seen happen.
Hmm. Now, what has been the most memorable match outside of the U.S. for you then?
Probably Thailand and World Shoot.
Hmm.
It was a really the match itself was absolutely incredible, and the stages were cool. They were hard as hell, but they were nicely constructed and all that.
Hmm.
Overall experience, probably Euro Handgun Championship, which we went to this last year in Greece.
Was that your first Euro Handgun Championship?
Yep, that's the first one I've been to. It's the Continental Championship for all of Europe. It's considered a level 3 IPSC match, I believe.
So, and that what happens every 3 years, or is that an every
Hmm.
year thing?
Yeah, it's definitely not every year. It's either every other year or every 3 years. I think it's every 3 years, but that might be changing because the World Shoot itself is going to a 4-year cycle.
Hmm. Do you feel that that 4 year cycle is more appropriate than a 3 year cycle?
I mean, I don't really care. Like I'm World Shoot has consistently been good. I've shot two, and they've both been very good. So I'm kind of in a fan of keeping them on a more routine cycle because that enables me to shoot more of them by the end of my career.
Hmm.
But I don't really care.
Right. So you shot 2022. Does that mean what was the last one then? 2017?
Yeah, 2017 there was a one in France.
Oh, okay. Yeah. God, yeah. COVID really jacked up time.
Yeah, I know that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Like, because, I remember there was 14. Then I had to think, wait, what was the next one? But yeah,
Yep.
because 14 was in Florida and then 17 was in France.
Hmm.
Yes, France. See, and I'm already forgetting it. It's okay. Um, did you place, now that I can't remember, did you place higher at this World Shoot than the 2017 World Shoot?
Yeah, I was around 30th or something like that in 2017, and then sixth at this one.
Oh yeah, you murdered it then. I mean,
Yeah.
now, Graffel's got his son shooting now, isn't that correct?
Yes, he is. Yes, I think
Oh,
his first really big major match was the Euro Handgun Championship this year.
is it crazy that there's two of them now?
Yeah, it's going to be terrifying. In about, I would bet in 3 years that he'll be pretty well unstoppable.
Yeah. Do you think he's gonna beat his dad though?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, at some point you have to either lose or quit, right? So
Right.
who
I mean, this is
knows?
this is kind of true. This is also a true statement. Mm. But yeah, so you mentioned the European Gun Champion. Well, we've been talking about it for a minute now. One of your squad mates, Eric, wants you to talk all about him for at least 30 seconds because he's like, well, because I posted up, what should Mason and I talk about? He's like, European Handgun Championship in his great squad mates. I'm like, oh, of course you want to be self-serving, Eric,
Yep.
but it's okay.
Eric's a good guy. I hadn't shot with him before, but he's a good dude. He had a really good squad at that match.
Yeah. Do you have the normal, most of the normal boneyard guys or no?
A couple of them, yeah. We had so it was me, my wife, Casey, Matt Nash, and Mr. Steven Lubman. So that's quite a dream team for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Do Airbnbs work like they do over there, like they do here? So
Yeah, it's pretty well identical actually. We
well,
had a pretty good one.
that's good then. At least that's nice. So then it's like, okay, we rent a house. We're kind of cheap. But
Yep.
I'm betting that's a good match. You were there over a week? I'm assuming just for the match itself.
Yeah, well, it was the match was 4 days of shooting, and there was a day off. So the regular match was 5 days scheduled, and then you have to be there for 2 days prior to that because they do equipment check and the parade and everything sort of separately. They do the equipment check the day before the parade, so you have to show up the 2 days early.
Oh, I mean, I can understand since it's like a big match and everyone travels in because it's more of an event. It's not just a match you shoot and then you bail out the next day.
Yeah,
It's a thing. Now,
it
I'm
is. Yeah.
assuming everyone would more like this in the States. Am I correct? Not correct? Or do you prefer the dine and dash kind of method?
I mean, like, I don't know how you could do it in America, just for the fact that, I mean, unless you're doing it in a national park,
Mm-hmm.
most people aren't going to want to be there for 2 additional days. I mean, like, if you went to a match in Iowa and they did that format, it would be a bit of a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, nothing against the Midwest or anything, but there's not the same reasons to stick around in a lot of the places where matches are. Like, nothing for nothing, Central Florida, if you want to drive an hour from where the ranges used to be, you
Mm-hmm.
could get into some fun. But that's, for a lot of people, it does not justify 2 additional days of travel.
Right. Well, in Iowa, you could watch corn grow, or maybe you can even play
Yeah.
cornhole. I don't know. I mean, but they don't
Yeah.
even play cornhole with corn. It's beanbags. But
Yeah.
no, that like I didn't think that would be a real sport, but it's a real sport.
Yeah, it's I used to, me and my wife last couple times we went up to matches, and I don't remember where we were going, but we happened to sit down, and there was a professional cornhole on TV, and we watched them all be in the zone the day before we shoot the match. It
Yeah.
was fun.
Now, did it make you want to get like cornhole boards made and then have them at the house?
We have some, so I mean, it was very relatable for us. We're all like slinging the cornhole lingo around and everything. It was a good time.
So from recently, I've seen that you've gotten into the newest, craze of the nation, pickleball.
Yes,
Are you going to quit coaching shooting and coach pickleball now?
if I can get good enough, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the question is,
But I'm
are
not
you
very
still?
good at it yet.
Oh, so is Kay better then, or are you still better?
Uh, Technically, I'm rated higher than her right now, but not for long. The rating system they have is pretty gnarly, so she kind of got an unreasonably low rating her first time out, and I did pretty well the first time. So
Now, is there like a classifier for pickleball?
yeah, so it works apparently similar to the way tennis works, which I didn't know much about that. But basically, you show up to these matches they call ladders, and you
Mhm.
basically, they assume you're going to be, the classification system goes from like something like a 2.0 up to like a 7, which seems kind of random. But basically, you play against other players, and based on how much you win or lose matches against players, they average your rating over time, kind of the same way. Like each game serves as like a classifier score, and then
Mhm.
your number gets dragged to wherever it gets dragged.
Gotcha.
So right
So,
now I'm a 2.7, 2.6, 2.7, which is like basically mid B class or like
oh,
low B class.
okay. I mean, you're still learning, right? You can't be GM right out of the gate.
No.
But it's all matters who beats who though, right? So it's not just your performance; it's you beating somebody who has beaten somebody better than them. So you get a match bump, right? Is that how that works?
Yes, you collect their powers.
That power scaling, man. That's the way of anime, right?
Hmm.
So is this your new hobby outside of shooting, or is this just one of your many hobbies outside of shooting?
It's been the predominant one for a while now. When we got back from handgun nationals, I didn't do much shooting for about a month. So
Hmm.
pretty much the whole month of November and about the first third of December, I didn't shoot almost at all. I just played pickleball, and we went like 2 or 3 times a week.
Hmm.
So yeah, we took it pretty seriously for a while. I wanted to take a really good run at it just to see how much growth I could get if I focused on it a lot, and I
Hmm.
got a lot, but not probably not the same amount of growth as when I first started in shooting and when you're really raw. But I'll
Right.
definitely continue to do it a lot through the winter, as time permits, and as much as I can in the summer under the same circumstances. I'm just going to have a lot less time once work gets really hot again. I'm just traveling to matches all the time.
So are you gonna pack your racket whenever you go for work or a match?
Yes, I'm actually leaving for Arizona to go teach with Joel for this next weekend, and I'm bringing rackets. I'm gonna try to goad those guys into playing
So are you gonna get Joel to play then too?
if I can. We'll see.
I mean, it'd be a hoot. I think you should record it though. I mean,
I, I'll
not gonna
definitely
lie,
I will definitely document it.
but that's kind of cool. So is it super local to you, or do you got to drive like 30, 40 minutes to a pickleball court?
No, we're super lucky because there's not a lot of places in New Hampshire. Like it hasn't
Hmm.
hit really heavy yet, but we have a place like in spirit of Halloween fashion. We have this guy that threw up 6 courts in like an old Sears or something like that in a defunct mall that's like less than 10 minutes from us.
That's pretty awesome. Not gonna
Hmm.
lie. That's the good
Yep.
thing of the old decaying malls of the world.
Yes.
Pickleball courts. Although, like my decaying mall has like a grocery store in it now, and it's like
Hmm.
the best grocery store. They also have a skate park,
Hmm.
but I don't want to go into that skate park with all those hooligan kids in there.
Yeah, it might be a bad idea.
I don't want to break a bone. I'm too old to heal from that shit. I've already got enough problems as it is. But so that's kind of cool. We got the pickleball going.
Hmm.
Um, so it's okay when you win production, you win Carry Optics Nationals. You're gonna be like, screw it, I'm going to pickleball. See y'all later.
Professional dinker.
Yep. Nothing wrong with that. But what was okay? So in pickleball, I'm sorry, shooting people. I'm sorry we've diverged to pickleball, but it is very fascinating at the moment. What was the hardest? Like, was it following the ball? Was it moving to the right spot? Was it over confirming? What was the hardest thing to pick up right away?
Well, I think and I have a little bit of perspective now because we've brought a bunch of our shooting friends into it and sort of started them in it, and you get to see that little bit of step up where you are skill wise from where they are when they start.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the hard part at first is understanding the game is a little bit tough, and understanding defensively like how to like where you need to be on the court is hard. But the other thing is like when the ball moves around, you kind of track it with your eye and your head. And people that are fresh, they'll end up like tracking the ball with their entire body, where they want to like follow it with their hips to try to chase after it, like
Mm-hmm.
sort of the way that like young kids play soccer. Like that's kind of how it goes. And so until you develop the handling skills to kind of like do the work like with just a couple steps into reach to get after the ball, you end up very busy running around a lot more than you need to.
Mm-hmm.
And
And if
getting over that's been tough. And then just understanding, after that, it's getting a lot more finesse with all your shots. You can be more control with the ball and all that.
right, yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, it's a full size tennis court, correct?
It's a bit smaller. I
Okay.
don't remember exactly how much smaller offhand. And it's traditionally played doubles, which
Mm-hmm.
is a little different too.
Right, yeah, because you got to worry about your partner. Who's going to have to worry about what part and what play? Yeah.
Hmm.
And are you allowed to let it bounce one? Oh, you can't let it bounce at all, can't? Or
Yeah, you can. So
okay.
it's not to get too detail oriented, but basically when you're playing, it's allowed one bounce and one touch.
Mm-hmm.
One bounce on the ground, one touch from the racket on each side. And sort of the rough strategy of it is like when someone serves, it has to bounce once in each direction before you're allowed to start hitting it out of the air. And at that point, you can hit it directly racket to racket.
Okay.
So the strategy is basically you start in the back, and after those first few bounces, you close distance to get up to the front line like as fast as possible, so they have better sort of defensive exposure over the other side of the court. And
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes a very fast paced and sort of nuanced game of either dropping it right at the person's feet or trying to like rip it past them without them being able to get after it.
Fair enough. Now, so this is kind of like human ping pong with
Yep.
kind of, but
Yep.
do you want to play human foosball?
could be fun.
I would pay great money to watch, Team Boneyard go play human foosball.
Someone would break an ankle.
Yep. Yeah, someone's like, I'm not getting up tomorrow. Now, have you ever tried disc golf?
I haven't. That was actually we were looking at doing that like a couple years ago, and then we kind of fell into this instead.
Well, fair enough. I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, it just seems like it's not. I wouldn't say that pickleball is hipster, but it is a catching trend. I mean,
Hmm.
it's that or Top Golf, right? People go to
Hmm.
Top Golf because they don't play golf, but they like smacking the ball. But
Hmm.
here nor there, it's at least it's a good hobby to get out and stay athletic, especially during the wintertime when it's in New Hampshire. It's cold. No one wants to go
Yeah,
do anything in New Hampshire,
yeah. There's enough snow that you could not play pickleball outside right now. Put it that way.
right? Well, you do go shoot at what the Sig Academy, or is it the Sig Academy, or is it a different location
Yeah,
in
it's
the
the same
winter?
location. They have a bunch of indoor ranges now, so that's a really nice place. They've been putting on more local matches too, so we've been able to get after some local matches like every other week or so, which is good.
Hmm. Now, do you get to beat Phil Strader on a weekly basis then?
To the ones where he shows up, I get a chance, but I haven't actually been able to catch him at one recently because he's actually working over there now. So it's the novelty is probably not quite as great to come from his office upstairs. So walk down and spend 3 more hours shooting a match. I would imagine.
Right. So he's no longer at Sig HQ. He's at
Hmm.
okay, which
Yep.
is probably nice for him.
Exactly. I mean, it's something he's much more intimately familiar with. Not that
Hmm.
he was great at his job. Obviously, he has a lot of very good accomplishments with all the lines they're able to develop. But he's definitely an experienced instructor and range runner too. So
Even though he doesn't practice himself, or is that just a ruse? Does he actually practice?
I don't know exactly, but short answer I think is no.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough. Now, I think it was hilarious. I remember seeing, I think this was on Kay's Instagram, and then Phil posted it, where she dressed up for him as Phil for Halloween.
Yeah,
It was a very accurate
yeah.
representation of Phil
I was
there.
so mad because I was away doing classes and when that happened. And she would texting back and forth. She's like, "Oh, I might go as you, or I'll go as as this other shooter." I'm like, "Why don't you just go as Phil?" Like, I have an old Sick Academy shirt. You could like do the shadow on beard. You could put on some HD golds. Shoot a big fancy gold gun. She's actually spray painted one of the frames on our Sigs like gold all over it. So it's like this like big gold member gun.
That is
It's
hilarious.
fantastic.
Oh, that's a great. That's a recurring Halloween costume. That's just like, yep, pulling this one out of the bag every time.
Yeah, I think the trick should just be to get more people to do it next time.
Oh, a squad of Phils. Phil squatted with Phil's. Oh my lord. Nationals. This, I mean, although like I don't want to make anyone's mojo funky, but like nationals would be great.
Yeah, it'd be pretty fun.
Although I did bet, I didn't, not that I wagered money on Phil. I made a proposition against Brian Conley. He's like, Phil Strader ain't going to be in the top 10. I'm like, you want to bet? Do you really want to bet? He doesn't practice, but he's got this.
And it's iron sights.
Yes, it's iron sights, the bumpy things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like his abacus, right? Like that's
Oh
how he
yeah.
does math.
Yep. He's got some straight Aryan magic in those black sights.
Yeah. Now, when you switch to irons for yourself, like, are you a fiber guy or a blacked out sights? What's your preference on
I,
those?
I use fiber, but I mean, I have it. I use like Sharpie and stuff, and I darken it so that it's so that it's. I may try to set it up so that in any lighting conditions you can see the color pretty easily, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like the light pipe is like blown out in the sun where it makes it hard to see the top of the sight. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a mistake I see people make a lot, where it makes it pretty much impossible to aim finely, like in good lighting, when if you don't do something to darken that thing up.
Right now, I don't. I will. I would recommend. I will fully admit this, listeners. I don't. I don't do bumpy things. Right. So the last time I ever worried about bumpy things is when I had some night sights and I had to worry about a 6 o'clock hold on. I
Mhm.
mean, is it true? Like, are most competition sites pretty much still point to aim, point to impact,
Yeah,
or
as far as I know, anyway. I mean, like every gun I have is set up. I mean, I have adjustable rear sights on all my guns, so I set them up so they hit top of blade.
yeah? So you're not doing no bisect. You don't have to do a bunch of geometry in your sights when you're making an accurate shot.
No.
Gotcha. Now, are you still? Have you're only shooting sig dots on your carry optics guns, correct?
Yep.
Have you? Do they even offer a green option in those, or is it just red?
I think on some of the newer ones they do. The newest units I have are Romeo twos, and those are just red. But
Okay.
I think the new Romeo X and maybe even the new M17 dots have color options.
Okay. So yeah, you're always been a red dot kind of guy. So it's not like, but is your fiber green or is your fiber always been red too?
Yep, I switched to green fiber because when I was fresher in the sport, I shot a lot more IDPA,
Hmm.
and green's a lot easier to see in really crappy lighting. Which the matches I was shooting, almost every match they'd have one or two indoor stages where
Hmm.
they'd shut the lights off or significantly darken it. So it made sense to use green. So I've stuck with green for a long time.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense though. I mean, so you put gamer's gonna game, right? So you're gonna put the best gear that you can together. So
Yeah.
well, which is funny about gear because I've recently been talking to you about gray guns and SIGs. So if anyone doesn't know, my wife has a God, I can't even remember the name. It's an X5 Legion carry model. It's like the 3.9-inch barrel with
Hmm.
but it's threaded. So I'm like, I got to piecemeal parts together to this thing to be like, that's the one thing I will complain about SIGs is that at least that gun is way oversprung for what it needs to be, and I understand it's like a military spec. It's spec for NATO ammo. It's spec for standard box loads, but it's like I do not shoot standard box loads. I mean, I don't shoot no powder puff stuff either. I don't understand the idea of scraping the power factor floor and hoping that you come out okay on the other end.
No. Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, you still have an automated press, don't you? Or did you end up just going back to buying ammo?
I mean, I do both. I get a good amount of ammo through sponsorships, and I have a couple of presses that have drives on them. Just
Mm-hmm.
I have fingers in all the pies when it comes to ammo security.
Right, you have to nowadays. I mean, since COVID, you got to secure all your ammo from different places. It's like can't
Yep.
rely on getting primers and bullets in a reasonable fashion. So it's like
You have to diversify your ammo portfolio if you want to have unlimited access to shooting.
I love how you put that. That is a great. Now, can I turn my actual 401k into bullet portfolio, please?
Yeah, if you
I,
buy enough of it, it's almost as good as money.
I mean, right? It's like ooh, prime. And then you're like, remember these primers? These I bought these at 30 cents, but now they're at $1.
Yeah,
It's like stocks, right, guys?
right.
But no, we were talking. I think we were talking. What was it? Gray gun slide. Oh, that was the barrel thing I was asking about. The last
Hmm.
thing I think it was. It was like, I don't know what I don't know because I'm not a SIG guy.
Hmm.
Now, when you fiddle fart with a trigger, are you putting a gray guns in it or are you putting your own concoction in it?
No, I don't mess around with like trying to do science experiments. In all my guns, I just have gray guns kits. So they have their the competition kit with the hybrid trigger, which is just like soft curved trigger shoe.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't massage them, I don't polish them. I just install them, follow the directions in the box, and they feel good.
Right. Now, when you go for a trigger, are you looking more for a kind of rolling break, or are you more looking for a crisp, like, rod? As listeners does, I put my air quotes, crisp rod.
The SIGs are, I mean, like in the spectrum of them, right? Like if you feel like a 2011 trigger or like an AR trigger,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna have a wall, but it's not gonna be as crisp of a snap as like a single action trigger on one of those guns.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like I don't really care how light it is, honestly, but I'd rather have a well defined breakpoint. I find
Mm-hmm.
that to be a bit easier to manage.
Right. Well, especially making far long shots, right? Oh, especially with iron. Now, do you finally have enough like lowers and FCUs to just have my iron sight guns and my carry optics guns over here and my limited optics guns are over here and my IPSC legal guns are way over here?
Yeah, I have like retired versions of all those guns and active versions of all those guns. I
Right.
have like over I have nearly 2 dozen 320s.
That's not enough, sir. You need more.
I need to get a couple more, I think.
Yep. Well, you even picked up a couple. You've shooting some rifles. Have you shot PCC with a Sig yet?
I did. I shot one. No, I mean not comprehensively enough to like make any conclusions. I shot one classifier match with one a few years ago, but I haven't shot any matches with it since. I've been
Mm-hmm.
messing around with the rifle some, but it's more so rifle caliber rifle for pursuing you know PCSL and teaching and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, have you dove deep into Ben's last book of the rifle dynamic stuff? Well, I don't even know what it's called. I guess I'm so out of the loop on rifle things.
If you search Ben rifle, you'll find it, right?
I mean, it's Ben's names on it and it has a rifle on it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's only one. It's only one book, but now, if somebody, I guess I'll ask your opinion on this question since we're talking about rifles. If somebody's good with a pistol, it doesn't necessarily translate over to a rifle. But is it the other? Can it be the other way around?
Um, I don't know. I definitely don't think so. I don't think if you're like really talented at shooting a rifle, I'll say this. I think if you find someone who appears good at shooting a rifle, um, unless you really know what that means, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably not right. Like if I see someone that is perceived like looks to me like they're good at rifle, I'm not going to assume that they're good at pistol. But if I
Mm-hmm.
see someone who's good at shooting a pistol, I'm going to assume that they can learn how to shoot a rifle pretty quickly. Not that they're going to be good at it from the outset.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, half the problem with shooting rifles is the fact that sometimes the rifle just doesn't freaking work. Like most PCCs.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing that happens. I mean, teaching classes, it's routinely happens that people show up with stuff that breaks or just doesn't work right off the rip.
How frustrating is that as you as an instructor? They have a gun that functionally is not reliable to get them through a 200 round match, loan a 1,500 or 2,000 round class.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I mean, I don't want to call anyone out or anything, but it's one of the it's very obstructive of being able to get anything out of the class. And I mean, like above all, like if you show up, you're trusting me with your time and money to try to get better. It doesn't make sense to not invest a little bit of time to make sure your gear is working because it limits my ability to help you. Like I'm not able to really give feedback on a run where someone has a malfunction
Mm-hmm.
because number one, I'm not seeing the whole picture. But the other thing is, like they're focused on fixing the gun while I'm coming over to talk about what I saw in the performance.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's running through that information is running through a filter with a pretty fine screen at that point, and it's not going to get through.
Right. So speaking of malfunctions, do they hopefully do most people bring backup guns to classes, or they pretty much I only have one and then they have to fight through it the whole time?
I don't know. I think, well, definitely the sort of people that are going to not have malfunctions are the same sort of people that are going to be inclined to bring two guns.
Mm-hmm. This is also true.
So I've definitely had over the years, I've had a couple people that have had problems and be like, oh, I got to run home and get my other gun or whatever. But
Shit,
I don't really know.
I wish that was the case. Oh yeah, I just have to go home, like 10 minutes from home. Like no, most places are like, I'm 2 hours away, and this is the closest that I could get. Right.
Yes. Yeah. If you're driving more than 10 minutes to a class, it definitely makes sense in that case to have more than one gun,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully both of which work 100%.
Right. Now, do you in your classes do you teach a lot of PCC shooters, or is it 99 or 100% pistol?
It would be an exaggeration to say a lot. I've had more this year. I think I've had like in the neighborhood of a dozen total this year.
Mm-hmm.
or I guess 2023. So I mean, they're kind of sprinkled in there. I have one class with 3, and then I've had a few like sprinkled into other classes.
Mm-hmm. And you really don't have to change much of your teachings for rifle. It's after you
Honestly,
get.
the hardest part, like with PCC, like obviously I come up with only the experience I have. I'm not like
Mm-hmm.
an operational GM in PCC, so I can't speak to it more than what I know. But it appears to me that the problem with the mount is not really the specifics of how it's executed, more so just getting it to happen consistently. And then from that point, if you have someone doing that, like usually it's just a matter of getting them to shoot fast enough. Because
Mm-hmm.
like with even a decent mount with a PCC, you can shoot ignorantly fast on everything all the time. And I think
Mm-hmm.
people that shoot PCC, especially even people that get to be like one of the better guys in their club, they're comparing their time with a rifle to what other people look and sound like with a pistol, even like an open gun, and they
Mm-hmm.
think that that's appropriate. It's like, dude, no, like unless it's basically I don't know what necessarily the standard is, but probably like a 25 plus yard open target. Like there's no reason to not shoot at full speed because it's you can look to a spot and produce a group that's like this big, it literally as fast as you can pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So why not do that all the time? All you have to do is stay relaxed and like look to the right place, and it's difficult to get people to do that.
Mm-hmm. Get out of their own head and where they perceive that they need to have a certain split or transition
Mm-hmm.
on a certain target because,
Right.
oh, it's 25 yards. You're shooting a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
like,
yeah, it's just like with a pistol, right? Like when I'm sure when most people started, when you like start a new person shooting a pistol, like getting them to like crush the gun hard with their support hand is kind of tough because like
mm-hmm.
it's difficult to not grip with both hands or not grip at all. And it's like the same sort of thing. Like when someone mounts a rifle, they're kind of engaging their whole back and like their whole shoulder and everything with their support side arm, and getting them to divorce all the tension in their neck and their core and their firing hand, like that becomes hard. Like all that tension just kind of like moves all over and like does whatever it wants. It's the same stuff as shooting a pistol, probably even easier because it's much more gross motions. But getting people to like manage all that and go fast is difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely understand that. Like, my wife, she just got into shooting, so I'm like, all right, we're gonna work on the grip today, and it's like, how hard do I need to grip it? Like, you need to be like really like murder your hand underneath the other hand.
As
Like,
hard as you can, yeah.
yeah,
Because if you're not used to shooting, you're probably not gripping hard enough.
right. Or it's just like, well, why is the like we went to the indoor range, did some live fire, just like, all right, threw some pasters out on this. They give you a big freaking target at these indoor ranges. You just put pasters on, like, all right, try to do like a 10 round group in this thing, and they're all just going super low, and I'm like, okay. Give me the gun. Let me just check the zero. I switched ammo on it. So I was like, all right, let me check the zero. I'm proficient enough at pulling this trigger back straight to the rear. So I'm like, okay, proper grip. Oh, yep, it's zeroed. You're fine. Well, what am I doing? You're not gripping hard enough, obviously, because it's going directly down. And it's like, she's like, well, do I aim high? I'm like, no, don't
No,
don't think
yeah.
about that. It's gonna be a
Do,
bad day.
do trigger control at speed. That's really all you need to do. You do that dry fire 5 minutes a day for a week, and you'll be sorted.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then go validate it on the range. And
Yep.
now, do you deal with a lot of people who will do a bunch of dry fire yet not validate anything on the range?
Yeah, I mean, you have people that end up in that camp for a lot of reasons, right? Whether they're just like sort of the information consumer type, where they want to like seek out new training and new stuff all the time and then implement it. Like those tend to be like the homework type of people, where they do lots of dry fire, but through budgeting or time or whatever, they just don't take time to shoot. And
Mm-hmm.
you can tell, right? Like you can sort of peg that person just from watching how they operate. Like the way that they handle a gun will be very proficient. Everything looks right. But then just like whenever you make them do something complicated, when the gun's bucking around a bunch, that's when they start to have problems. And usually, if you talk to them about it, like they'll let on with that pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, and I was there when I first started shooting. I was there. I was like, oh, I can't go practice. I can't shoot. I can only shoot one match a month. Like, you find ways. You sell kidneys. You sell plasma. You do whatever you need to afford this hobby. You want to adopt some children from people. I mean, people will give
Yeah.
your kids away. You want to be a foster parent? Hey, state will give you money to go shooting. No, I'm not saying do any of these things, but yeah. Uh, no, Mason just has fur. Mason and I are smart. We just have fur babies. Like, this is
That's
important.
right.
It's okay to put them in cages.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
your cat would probably be very pissed if it has to go in a box.
It wouldn't really be worth it, but you could if you needed to.
Like, well, okay, question it. Now I'm gonna totally break chain. When you take the cat to the vet, does it go in a box?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be
I
a bad
wouldn't want to be.
attempt at anything else. It'd be like trying to hang on to a blender without a bowl.
Yeah, yeah, because that's a Siamese cat, right?
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I'm trying to remember all these cats. I know he has a cat and a very cute dog. Well, Kay has a very cute dog. We'll
Hmm.
put the. Mason is just tolerated by the dog. Is this true? Or is
Yeah,
it the
pretty
other way
much.
around now? It's like, hey mom, I have a cool new dad. I don't need you
Yep.
anymore.
She's a herding dog, so I mean, she's definitely listens to the one owner a lot better than me. I mean, she listens to me like with conditionally, put it that way.
It's like, oh, mom didn't disrespute. All right, we're good. We'll listen to you now. But no, oh, that's what I was like. Selling kidneys because I was in that camp. Like you couldn't go live fire, you couldn't go practice. It was, but then there is the guys on the other side that all they do is shoot and they're not learning anything right from their shooting.
Hmm.
Or,
Yep.
but then I guess there's that other spectrum of guy who just keeps taking class after class after class and can't actually work on any of the homework because they're
Hmm.
so engrossed in taking classes. Now, have you had to deal with many of those in your career so far, or no?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I've definitely seen a lot of all three types. And no matter how you come at training, right, you're going to end up with your own sort of series of blind spots. And like the hallmark of what separates people like getting better is their ability to sort of foresee them or know when to seek out new information. Like I always tell people in classes, like I don't always tell people, it's not like a monologue or anything, but I'll routinely tell people the goal of any class that I give is to give you like 6 to 8 months of homework,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Like I'm going to give you certainly make sure you understand and know in certain terms what the number one, maybe not the quote low hanging fruit is, what's easiest to prove, but what's going to give you the most returns. And then
Mm-hmm.
ideally, like, an additional 3 or 4 things that are either going to help get you there, like to work on that thing or like work to do after that's done. 6 to 8 months of work. So, I mean, like, if you do 6 to 8 months of work without new information, there's a good chance you're going to start to run into a wall. And almost everyone at some point in their career will hit a plateau where they see no progress for an extended period of time, or the progress just comes much, much slower. And of course, like just being clever, knowing when to help, sourcing information from the right places, like that's all mandatory to be able to get over it. Most of
Mm-hmm.
the time, just grinding out isn't going to get you there.
Right. Yeah. Now, what was it? I mean, you're still doing decent private lessons during the week, right? Or is that
Mm-hmm.
pretty much disappeared?
No, I still do quite a bit. In my local area, Um, it's like when I live within an hour and a half of people, for whatever reason, they're more reluctant to come set up a class because they always know they're going to see me. They always feel like they can make it happen next week or next year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of cases, it's just easier for me to schedule those on a case by case basis and do private, like one on one or group, small group training.
Right. And it's more less number of people, nice and private. You definitely get more out of the class.
Hmm.
Well, more one-on-one time out of the class because you might not have this question, but somebody in the class probably does, and then you have an epiphany because somebody asked the right question, and then
Yep.
everything clicks. You become a grandmaster, you become a national champion. The end of the story, right? Now, speaking of that, has there been any one of your students that has really stuck with the program? Kind of went from A to B and has like skyrocketed. That you can remember or know of somebody that is still on your radar.
I mean, it would be difficult to say anyone that like for sure people would know of,
Mm-hmm.
like nationally speaking. But I've had a bunch of people that have taken training over the years and done well either subsequently or just by happenstance. Uh, Mike Pan might be one that a lot of people might know. I don't know if you've had him on the show before, but he's a Team Atlas guy who's
Mm-hmm.
I think he was like top 16 at nationals and open this last year. So he's a pretty good shooter. He's taken a bunch of training with me in the past, and that's obviously not to say that he owes a success to me. That's not what I'm trying to say, but
Mason
he's
wants his
he's definitely
royalties,
a
Mike.
yeah. I want my Pan money. Yeah. Yeah, but he's done really well. A few others too. Like I would struggle to really like pin down anyone specifically that a lot of people would know, and that's not to say that I don't know them. It's just I don't know necessarily who else folks would know offhand.
Right, gotcha. Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. But you're always, we're always changing and evolving. The curriculum always changes. I bet it's no like even the first class of 2024 is going to be could be probably completely different than the end of 2024. You learn
Hmm.
new things about how to teach or coach, or you've come to an epiphany of this is how you should do things. Well, a way of doing things. So um, I'm assuming the curriculum always does evolve. I mean, it might have the same principles or the concepts, but how you deliver that information might be different now.
100%. Yeah, it's I try to pretty much the first three drills I'll do in like fundamentals classes, for example, like that format hasn't changed in probably 2 years, just
Mm-hmm.
because it's like okay, you need to be able to shoot the gun straight and fast. So we're going to look at that, work on that in the most elementary ways possible before we work on, you know, underwater basket weaving, basically. And
It's been a
then,
minute since I've heard that, by the
yeah,
way.
but yeah, it's like every year I try to come up with at least 3 or 4 like new drills that are
Mhm.
either just a remix of the same concepts, just executed a different way, or try to actually explore to like learn new stuff that people aren't touching at all. My wife actually helps me come up with a lot of that stuff because she's in a different place in her shooting than I am, and she questions a lot of the stuff that I do in a constructive way. And that's been the inspiration for developing a bunch of new drills, and that always helps sort of shake up the way that you deliver information.
Well, speaking of that, um, when you're training with you're training with Kay,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just trying to do your own thing, and and you're trying to coach her. Um, do you feel like your training will suffer, even though you live together, you're married, it's always more, you're coaching. It's not like you're able to shoot all the time. Well, you do shoot all the time, but I mean, does it hinder your performance? Do you feel not to put her on the spot and throw her under the bus, but
I would no, definitely not. I mean, I think everyone's seen sort of the example, like they know this guy that goes to their club and he gets a new girlfriend or whatever, and he shows up and she's like, I'm not trying to be mean when I say this, but she's like kind of a nightmare. Like she doesn't know the rules. She's not really that interested. He's like getting in the way, like showing her the stage plan the whole time. Like she doesn't really want to be there. She just wants to be with him. Like
mm-hmm,
that kind of a thing where it monopolizes his time the entire time. Like me and Kay's relationship on the range is the absolute antithesis of that. Like we treat each other like squad mates. We point out stuff to each other about the stages, and we don't really socialize that much while we're there.
mm-hmm,
So I mean, it ends up being a very valuable relationship when we go to shoot matches together. Training wise, sometimes we get sort of chippy with each other because we're challenging each other to get better,
mm-hmm,
and it can be sometimes hard to not let that become personal, especially because I mean, if your training is going well, you're not going to be in a beautiful mood the entire time. Training days are on a normal distribution.
mm-hmm,
5 or so% are going to be god awful, where you think about quitting. 5 or so% are the exact opposite, where you feel like you can't miss, and then there's going to be a lot in the middle. So
mm-hmm,
of course, being with your spouse can aggravate or smooth that depending on the day.
mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Now, I noticed last year. Well, the other day you just posted a picture, or I don't know who posted it. Your face was in it. It's all that matters. The cat was on the table. Your face was there, and there was Legos everywhere. Well, I call them Legos because it's the 3D kits. When have you been forced to design stages for major matches?
I wouldn't say I'm forced to, but it's been something I've done a little bit for a few years. This last year, 2023, we ran the first New Hampshire State USPSA match, which, like, not to toot my own horn, but I'll toot my own horn. It was an absolutely fantastic match. Me
Mm-hmm,
and Kay designed about half the stages for the match, and the match on the whole, like from the on the range experience to like the stage construction, in my opinion, it was an absolute smash hit. So we're doing that again this next year. So we're going to design four or five stages for that, and then I'm doing 1 or 2 for the Area 7 match this year, which is going to be at the SIG Academy, which would be a really good match, and then another one for a match that's up in Maine, the Trident Standby to Fly match, which they always do a rotating charity benefit
mm-hmm.
match, which has been consistently good as well.
Yeah, because this is what your second or third year involved with that match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So in New Hampshire, that was also it was for a decent. They were making, weren't they donating money to a cause or something on New Hampshire
Yes.
as well?
Yep. This last year they did it was a charity to benefit Deliver Fund, which is a human trafficking investigation and sort of law enforcement assistance charity. So they basically fund like online sleuths type of job where they are able to funnel information through various sources and give it to authorities to be able to like help them in executing arrests for human trafficking cases.
Mm, that's very cool. That's very cool.
Very
Very
cool.
very deserving charity nonetheless. And you worked as, was it you designed and worked a stage with a shaky bridge on it, or was it just like a big platform?
The one that we did was that one we designed that one. It was a stage where all the rounds needed to go squarely downrange because it's
Mm-hmm.
a range that has like some equipment stored on the sides and there's trees in the berms and stuff like that. Not supposed to shoot in the side berms. So just to sort of make it interesting, we wanted to make a really difficult stage that was going to be kind of linear, and to shake it up, we added that really big physical prop in the middle of it, whereas the 2 pretty large stairs that you had to jump up onto and then off of if you wanted to do the stage efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Now, if I'm not correct, this will be the SIG Academy's first big match
since its founding, or have they?
In a long time, but not the first one. They did
Okay.
one in 2013 or 2014. They ran the Area 7 match there as well.
Okay, so it's been a long time. A lot of range
Mm-hmm.
improvements. For the people who don't know about the Sigma, how many bays do they have?
Oh man, now you're taxing my memory. They have standing right now in the area where they'll be running the match. They have 9,
Mm-hmm.
and they're adding something like 5 more to one of the corner ranges that'll get blown out and expanded a whole bunch. But I mean, they have that's not the extent of the facility is huge, but the area where like the pistol pits, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
is will be something like a dozen and a half or so.
Oh, okay. That'll be a nice place for a match then. Are they
Mm-hmm.
gonna? So you said you're designing a couple stages for that. Other than that, are you going to be involved or just shoot the match?
I hope to be able to show up and build the stages. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like that should be possible, and I'm not sure if we'll be around to staff the match or not. It's going to depend on I'll make time to be able to shoot it, and I'm hoping at work doesn't call so that I'm able to stick around and work the match as well.
Yeah, I mean, you do make your own calendar, so I mean, these things that you can block off dates.
I can, and I'll do that for shooting matches. I'll make time, but
Mm-hmm.
when someone says my club can do it, right now or next year, then it's like I kind of have to take the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities I get.
Fair enough. That is a true point. And what the SIG Academy, they've been hosting their 365 match recently. Is that last
Hmm.
couple of years?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
they've been ramping up their competition schedule a lot. So they've hired 2 full-time guys that are basically a competition coordinator and assistant competition coordinator that have been hosting all like the weekly indoor matches that they're running there. They're hosting like the EDC series, the USPSA matches, PCSL matches, employee matches. And then, through the summer when they were able to shoot outdoors more comfortably, they were doing large level 1 matches with like upwards of 100 people at them and doing a very very good job, like the pomp and circumstance of a level 2 match. So they've been working at ramping up that schedule a lot over the last year, and prior to that they were doing something like a half a dozen sort of some invite, some open enrollment matches, like that EDC match, which was sort of a carry gun sized P365 match where they'd host sort of IDPA stages, and they're going to be doing that again this next year, but the rules are going to get expanded a little bit more to be more encompassing of other people that shoot other guns and that are of different sizes. So it'll still be a sort of a concealed carry match, but it's going to be more practical shooting-y than IDPAE.
Okay, but are you still forced to shoot a SIG?
No. This upcoming year they're going to change that aspect so that basically there'll be a box, and if your gun fits the box, you can use it.
Oh, dang it. I mean, I would shoot a 20. That'd be kind of cool. Put a 2011 in there, but then just sticker the SIG on it. See, it's a SIG.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, someone might get a kick out. The guy checking the box would be at least get a kick out of it. At least I'd hope.
I think they're going to make the box around like the Glock 48 or the X Macro, or
Hmm.
whichever gun it is that's like their large concealed carry gun. So I think it
Right.
would be technically possible to get a 2011 to fit that size. It would just be really goofy for anything else.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But no, I don't mind the wife SIG. It's not bad. I mean, my only complaint is the grip's a little wide in the back behind the beaver tail. That is
Mhm.
like the largest complaint. Her and I both have, and I'm like, my hands are a lot larger than hers, and I'm just like, yeah, it's a little chunky.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of folks will take those and basically, like you describing, the gun sort of has like this wide body, thick, grip, and
Hmm.
up around the slide lock, it has these shelves, and up around like towards the beaver tail, a lot of people will shave that down to make it
Hmm.
a little bit easier to get that web of your hand high up in there. And a
Hmm.
lot of people do that. It's a pretty easy modification you can do. Or you could also look at like the AXG grips. A lot of people like those a little better for that exact reason. It's much narrower around the back, and you can put swells on it to still make it fill your hand pretty good.
Hmm. Oh, speaking of AXG, are you still running polymer grips? Well, tungsten polymer grips is your main gun, or did you switch to an AXG?
I was messing around with AXGs for a bit. I mainly was using them because they had stock triggers in them, and I figured that would be a good challenge for over winter. But I
Hmm.
switched back to the TXG grips, with my regular slides and everything, and just put the heavy triggers in those guns, just because it makes sense for me to be, at least loosely preparing with the gear that I'm going to be using at the matches early this year. IPSC Nationals is pretty early in the year, so it'd be kind of dumb to get tuned up with a different gun.
Yeah, that's got to be interesting because, IPSC was in October and then it's back in April and in Rio Salado, and it's an interesting cycle for sure. You don't get much, bounce back time because that's going to be what your first big match of the season.
For most people, it will be. I'll be shooting some matches in like January, February, just to partly to get ready, just partly out of habit.
Right, but that will be the highest level of match you're gonna be shooting that early in the
Certainly,
season.
yeah, yep.
Gotcha. Fair. Oh man, that's gonna be interesting. I mean, everyone in the north like us have always do complain of matches being early in the season. Last year was super forward heavy. It seemed like on matches because Optics Nationals was like June, so they were like, oh, we'll push everything into May or April
Mhm.
and May, and now everything's like now we have to normalize here, I guess, people and spread it out
Yeah,
throughout the
I don't
season.
I don't really love that trend, especially for folks that live. I mean, there's people that get hit with it even worse than us, like places
Hmm.
like Missouri or Minnesota. There's like large shooting constituencies in those places, and they do not have workable weather until late April.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or the snow's gone, but since the snow melt, you have nothing but mud, and you're
Hmm.
like, I don't know how to get back to the range because my car will get swallowed with mud.
Hmm. It's a thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's definitely. Hey, you get mudded out at your range, just take the horses.
Yeah, I'll
I,
walk.
because how far are you from your domicile to the blasting zone?
I mean, I could walk it in 5 to 10. Driving, it's a minute or two.
Oh, okay, so it's reasonable. It's not like it's the opposite end of the property. It's
No, well,
still.
it kind of is, but I mean, still, it's like if I wanted to, I could. If I was pressed to, I could walk down there and like chrono ammo or zero a gun or whatever I needed to
Hmm.
do.
Yeah. Now are there? I know you're kind of. Oh damn it! I lost the train of thought, but I've got another question, so that's always the good thing. I'm just gonna keep rambling until it comes out. But in 2023, is there any breakthroughs you made in your own shooting that kind of changed how you thought about some things you've been doing?
I don't know if I'd say breakthroughs. My approach had some flaws, I would say, where I had a lot of support. My sponsors came through for me in a pretty big way this year, so I had a lot of support. I was able to do a lot of training, and I probably took that a little bit past its logical extreme in a lot of cases.
Hmm.
I've come to realize that you know everyone wants to shoot a lot to get ready to go to a match, right? Just logically, that makes sense. But I've come to realize that there is such a thing as overtraining, and there is such a thing as losing perspective on what's important, and that's much easier to do the more you train. It's easy to get to not see the forest through the trees when you're doing tons and tons of training.
Hmm.
So this next year, I'm going to make a more concerted effort to do skill building blocks or regular, traditional training blocks, somewhat separate from match prep blocks, where I'm, setting really hard lines on the calendar to say, okay, after this date, you're not attempting to necessarily get better or be faster at anything. You're just kind of programming yourself to execute the way you need to at the match, which is not a new lesson for me. It's just I sort of failed to act on that wisdom this year in a couple of cases, and that definitely held me back from from showing up in the headspace I needed to be good to do well at some of the matches. I would say.
Hmm. Yeah, that exploratory mode definitely can probably bleed into your
Hmm.
match performing zone mantra mode.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
And I'm a
hard. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
It's hard too as an instructor. It's easy to dedicate like training time to just doing stuff that's going to make you a better instructor or make you able to like do your own drills like at an unbelievable level, so that you don't have to worry about that for your students and stuff like that are able to do well. But being in
Hmm.
that instructor mindset, I wouldn't say it sounds bad to say it's destructive, but it's certainly not helpful after a certain point where you're thinking about all these like really rudimentary problems. You're paying attention to specific parts in your grip and stuff like that. And it's like frankly, I'm at a skill level where like I don't need to worry about the specifics of my grip placement in order for it to go right. Like I just need to say, okay, like when it's time to take the time to get a good grip and make it happen. Just to give like a small example. And so stuff like that, it's easy to like get lost in the weeds, and that can affect your approach for getting ready for matches when you're just focused on too much small stuff that in the grand scheme doesn't matter that much.
Right. And I bet there are a few people who do, paralysis by analysis kind of stuff, and it's just too much in the weeds. And I bet you have some students, and you're just like, let it go. Just shoot the gun. You know how to shoot the gun. Don't worry about the problem.
Yeah.
Don't
Yep.
worry about your how much force of your pinky that you need to use as
Yep.
a grip pressure.
Some people, when they're managing their own shooting, they do it like the way that a parent would teach their kid how to drive a car, right? Like
Hmm.
Like, oh, okay, now put your foot on the gas. No, I'm gonna break. It's like, okay, we're not gonna break the car. Like, let's just shoot.
Mhm.
It's okay to just like do it until you can do it the same way a bunch of times in a row, and then make changes from there.
Mhm. Right. And then, find that comfort zone and then bust through that wall again, right? There's always
Mm-hmm.
that repetitive cycle. But Mason, we are kind of near the end of the time I have allotted for us tonight, but that's okay. You said you were going to hang out with Joel Park by the time this airs, it'll be that next coming weekend because this will air on Monday, whatever Monday is, like the 15th or whatever it is. Well, no. Yeah, so it'd be that, you've already had gone and shot with Joel at that point, if I remember the dates right, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing. But you'll be a little. Hopefully, you won't be sunburnt. I mean, that's always the goal. Kay will make sure to pack a bunch of sunscreen for you, right?
That's right.
Or are you gonna pack? Do you pack your own bag
I mean, I'll probably just wear long sleeves because I'm too irresponsible to put on sunscreen.
with a big floppy hat, right? You gotta have a
Yep,
big floppy hat
that's right.
because pasty people. That's what we are. We're pasty people.
That's right.
So you've got this class up in Tucson, Arizona. What's after that? What's coming up next?
I got a couple matches. I'm shooting a couple of those matches I talked about just a minute ago. I always make it a habit of shooting winter matches because I think it's good for you. And then I got some agency work in the middle of February, and then like around April or so, my schedule gets pretty crazy. It's matches and classes every single weekend for months on end.
Mm-hmm. Off the top of your head, how many classes do you have scheduled for 2024?
About a dozen.
Okay. Is that where you want to be, or you want a few more on that schedule?
It'll buff out a lot more. Like usually, like around like February, that's generally when people start to realize that they want to set up training. Like the back half of my year still has space, and that'll get blown out a lot.
Gotcha.
Looking at the way that it worked this year, like 2023, I basically set it up so I had like 3 months blocks where I would be teaching classes like every single weekend, and then I took a break in the middle to compete, and then I was back to work like every single weekend. And I expect it's probably going to end up working the same way.
So would you, as a business person, would you rather that people get a hold of you before the end of the year, like for like next year, so you can plan accordingly, and then they're not like, oh, you can't have the dates you guys want. I'm sorry.
That's
Like, sorry,
right.
sorry about.
Yeah, of course, right. So like I have people that are hitting me up now to be like, hey, like when can we set up a class in May? And I'm like, you can't set up a class in basically May through July right now because it's just there's not time to do it. So
Right.
if you want to set up a class with me and you've been thinking about it, now is the time. We're looking at basically September through November, and that is still a lot of time left to work with in the year. But if you've been considering it, now is the time. Email me at masonlane.lsat@gmail.
Yeah, there you go. Get on Mason's books. If there's probably a class in your area, so you might not have to set one up, but you can get in one because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's always slots. You always can get into a class. Mason's a good class. I haven't taken it. He is coming to my neck of the woods. Unfortunately, I'm unable to partake in it
Womp womp.
because what the funny part is? There's like 3 or 4 of us who will set up instructors within our state in the competition space. Yet no one decided to talk to each other on the calendars for like between matches and like other shit. It's like, why'd we all pick June? So in the month of June, we have Tom Castro's in the state, Tim Herron, and then yourself. So there's 3 of you all within like a 3-week blimp, and it's like, guys, we really needed to do better on this part.
Yeah, that's not the best for demand either. Like people are a lot hungrier for that if you space it out.
Well, yeah, and nobody was talking. Well, and luckily enough, they're all relatively far away from each other, so like hopefully we're not going to draw exactly from everybody. It's not like, oh, we're all going to host these 3 guys at the same range in the same month, which
Perfect.
that'd be very frustrating. But this is not your first time in Michigan. It won't be because
Nope.
you were there in end of 23 or the beginning of 23.
I think yeah, beginning of the year this last year I made a trip up to Brooklyn Sportsman's Club.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it looked like it was a good class. I think everyone got something out of it, so nothing wrong.
It was
with
great. Yeah, it was that's an awesome range, and it was a really good class.
Nothing wrong with that. So yeah, guys, if you want to hit Mason up, go hit him up at Mason at LST. I can't even remember it now.
Yeah, just masonlane.lsat@gmail.com. Or if you want to, just hit me up on any of the socials. That's fine too. If you just need a couple questions answered, we can make that happen.
Social security number, date of birth, first unborn child's name. I mean, just give me the access to the internet. But no, brother, dude, this has been blast. It's been so long since we've chit chatted, so it's good to get you back on the podcast. Shoot the shit, talk training. About the normal stuff we all want to talk about. But guys, go check out Mason Lane, brother. I appreciate your time. Listeners, get out and do things. I will see you on the next one.